Might as well get the obligatory granddad reference out of the way now. Happy Father's Day, everyone! This one goes out to all the glad dads, all the sad dads, all the rad dads, but not the bad dads. They can all go to therapy to think about how they've let their kids down. Anyway, on a day like this, I feel it's only fitting to honor the fathers in gaming who will do what it takes to raise and protect their children. Now for this list, I'm only looking for biological fathers, not father figures, which means some otherwise worthy candidates won't be on here. And since this is such a special occasion, I am dropping the play before put rule for this list only. And before I forget, there are going to be spoilers on this list. With all that said, grab a drink, pull up a chair, and get ready to toast the greatest dads in gaming. It's game time! Funny how in nearly all of the main series Pokemon games, your character's family typically consists of you and an apparently single mother. Turns out there's only one instance where your character actually has an own father. And as fate would have it, he's also a gym leader. How's that for pushing you to grow? The reason I consider Norman to be a good father in spite of his line of work is, well, actually kind of because of his line of work. The first time you run into him at his gym, he challenges you to earn 4 gym badges with the promise of a battle later on. And then he sows the seeds of a friendly rivalry between you and that precious cinnamon roll Wally to encourage you to grow even more. And once you finally earn the right to face him, he lets you know in no uncertain terms how proud he is to be able to face you. And be honest, if he didn't care about you, would he really put up as much of a fight as he did? Seriously, that slacking is brutal. Call it tough love if you want. It's a well-known fact among fans of Mortal Kombat that Johnny Cage is an asshole. But let's be honest, people. He's an asshole in the best way possible. Aside from being an action star, he's always got that quick wit that somehow manages to avoid being overly annoying and actually can be pretty hilarious at times. And he actually got quite a bit of development in the reboot. And then he developed a relationship with Sonya, eventually married her, and had a daughter. So, how did he turn out as a father? Pretty darn well, actually. In fact, the reason that his marriage with Sonya fell through can be summed up in one line.
There was a time when you cared more about your family than your job. General.
Yeah, he's willing to test Cassie's mettle, but you can tell he really cares about his little pumpkin. Especially near the climax where Johnny tells Cassie to deal with Shinnok instead of tending to him. And considering just how much Cassie took after her dad, especially inheriting his powers and beating the shit out of Shinnok with said powers and her mother's military training, I'd say she turned out pretty well.
Funny, beautiful, saves the world. My work here is done.
Being a politician is never easy, especially given the current political climate. But there's only one guy manly enough to transition from the wrestling arena into the political arena and still be a kick-ass father to boot. Everyone say it with me now. Mike effin' Hag R. You all know this guy's got some serious muscles, and let me tell ya, his body of steel is backed up by a heart of gold and an iron will. Ever since his days racking up belts in the CWA, he's always been making his daughter proud. So what does a champion wrestler do after leaving the ring? Why, run for public office in a crime-ridden hellhole, of course. So Hag R gets elected mayor of Metro City, and the first thing he does is make an effort to change things for the people's sake. So of course, the resident criminal gang decides to kidnap Jessica to use as a bargaining chip. Naturally, that shit don't fly. So what does dear old daddy do? Rely on the police force to save his daughter? Hell no! He gathers a couple of partners and hits the streets to rip Mad Gear a new one with his own hands. And a lead pipe, you gotta respect the pipe. For someone to risk his own neck for the sake of his daughter and his city, that takes a lot of guts, a lot of muscle, and a lot of heart. Hag R for President 2016! Make America kick ass! Now here we have an interesting case. When we first met Damus, the King of Spargus in Jak 3, he just found the exiled Jak and Daxter wandering in the barren wastelands. At first, he comes off as cold, yet wise and calculating, befitting of a ruler. But as Jak progresses through the trials, he eventually grows closer to Damus, and Damus eventually recognizes Jak as one of his finest warriors. Ultimately, Jak proves himself by completing an amulet and earning Damus' trust completely. During that time, Jack learns of Deimos' past, including the loss of his son and his exile from Haven City. Eventually, things come to a head when Deimos comes to Jack's rescue during an attack by the Darkmakers. Unfortunately, this leads to Deimos' death at the hands of a Darkmaker Harbinger overturning their combat vehicle. In his dying breath, he tells Jack to find his son, giving him an amulet that belongs to him. Wait, a younger version of Jack was wearing that same pendant during Jack 2. It doesn't take long for Jack to connect the dots and realize the truth.
Father.
To be honest, it's saddening to see that Deimos died without even realizing how good a father he was to his son through the bond he developed with him, without even realizing he was his son. And it just makes it more aggravating how Count Vigor pours salt on the freshly created wound.
You seem upset. Did I tell you too late? You are the son of the great warrior Deimos. Oh, and he never knew. How delightful.
Okay, I'm gonna admit it. Final Fantasy XIII was one of my guilty pleasures. Yeah, it had a lot of flaws, but I still found some enjoyment in it. Though I will admit the characters are very hit or miss, and I mean very hit or miss. Which makes it a good thing that Saz Katsuri was one of the better parts of this game. Typically one of the more level-headed characters in the game, he was also the character most likely to lighten the mood, at least when the game didn't get into the really serious moments, and great Scott did it get heavy at some points. From many of his interactions with Vanille, he learned just how much Saz loves his son Dodge, and that the pain he hid from his companion stemmed from Dodge being branded as a Sanctum Lassie. Saz would have done anything to save his son, even if it meant giving himself up. At a critical point in the story, he learned firsthand that his son's focus was to capture Pulse Lassie, including Saz himself. At that point, when his anguish boiled over, I couldn't help but feel bad for him. At least in the end, he was reunited with his son, who continued to be his motivation throughout the remainder of the trilogy. And hey, the Chocobo chick in his afro was cute as hell. Don't deny it. Being a dad usually means you have an obligation to be there for your child. Unfortunately, the typical dad also needs a job to provide for his family. So how can you be there for your child when you can't actually, be there? Well, making sure your kid has the tools he needs certainly helps. Such is the case with Dr. Yuichiro Hikari from Mega Man Battle Network. In the network-driven Internet of Things society of this alternate timeline, Dr. Hikari is a scientist dedicated to advancing network technology. While his son Lan is out thwarting the plans of World 3 or whatever cybercrime organization is up to no good, dear old Dr. Dad is working on all manner of new enhancements for the benefit of both Lan and the rest of humanity. The style change, the Navi customizer, the double soul system? Yeah, Dr. Hikari made all those. In fact, without Dr. Hikari, there would be no Mega Man. As it turns out, spoilers for the first game by the way, Mega Man.exe was created from the DNA of Lan's twin brother, Hub, who died of a heart defect shortly after being born. So, by reviving Hub as Mega Man, Dr. Hikari gave his son the means to protect the world. He must be so proud of his little heroes. The Hierophant, the fifth card of the Major Arcana, representing religion, group identification, conformity, tradition, and beliefs. Rather fitting then that the character in Persona 4 represented by this social link happens to be a police detective. Of all the characters on this list, Ryotaro Dojima arguably went through the most development. When Yu Narakami first came to Inaba, Dojima was actually wrapped up in his detective work and struggling with being a father. Thank goodness for social links, eh? Turns out that even in the midst of the ongoing investigation of the murders in Inaba, Dojima was actually investigating another case. The hit-and-run murder of his wife. But even that may have been an excuse to spend less time with poor Nanako, considering she reminded him of his wife. It's only when Nanako tried to run away that Dojima finally realized that he couldn't keep running away from his problems and decided to face the truth head-on. Dojima's development came to a head in one of the game's late chapters when Nanako was kidnapped. Of course, Dojima couldn't bear the thought of losing his daughter just as he lost his wife. The determination he showed in trying to save Nanako, as well as putting his faith in Yu and his friends to save her, showed just how much he really did care about her. And he also cared about Yu. If he didn't, he wouldn't be trying to make sure he wasn't getting into trouble. You don't need special glasses to see the truth there. Also doesn't hurt that your bond with him lets you fuse one of the best personas in the game. When Frank West descended upon the zombie outbreak in Willamette, Colorado, he was in pursuit of the next big story. So then, why would a motocross champion like Chuck Greene risk his neck against hordes upon hordes of zombies and the occasional psychopath? Well, It was all for the sake of making sure his daughter didn't become a zombie. You see, 3 years before the events of Dead Rising 2, Chuck lost his wife to zombification in Vegas, and to make matters worse, his daughter Katie got bitten and infected as well. So now, where weaker men would collapse into despair, Chuck was determined to keep his daughter human at any cost. To keep Katie from turning, she needed to be injected with a drug known as Zombrex, and Chuck would take any risk to make sure she would get it. Heck, at the beginning of the game, he was killing zombies on a reality show to earn money to buy the drug. And then the zombie outbreak spread across Fortune City, and he was forced to flee to the shelter with his daughter. Certainly didn't help matters that he was framed for causing the whole mess in the first place. I'll admit he did make some bad life choices between Dead Rising 2 and 3, but he was still doing it for Katie, and they did reconcile in the end. And hey, she's no longer infected thanks to the cure from Nick Ramos' blood. Hooray for plot convenience, I guess? Sometimes, to prove you're a good father, you have to deal with the skeletons in your closet. And yeah, John Marston's had them in his closet, under his bed and up under his faucet. Is he nuts? Nah, he's just a former outlaw who was in with a notorious gang that had degenerated from a band of Robin Hood-esque bandits into the worst scum in the West. And then he was shot in a botched robbery and left for dead, after which he pretty much said fuck that noise and ditched the suckers along with his wife and son. The entire plot of the game revolved around what John was willing to do for his family. The reason he tracked down the members of his former gang was because his wife and son were being held hostage by the feds. After securing their freedom, he continued to be there for his son, from teaching him how to hunt to saving him from a grizzly bear. But then, the feds came back to Marston's ranch. After all, there was still one member of the gang who was left alive. In the shootout that followed, after holding back dozens of soldiers, John told his wife and son to ride off, promising he'd catch up. Only, he never did. Instead, he made the ultimate sacrifice. John allowed his life to be taken so that his wife and son would no longer be terrorized by the government that wanted him dead. It's said that there is no greater love than to lay down one's life for those they love. If that's the case, then John's sacrifice alone earns him this spot. Rest in peace, you wonderful, filthy outlaw. Now before we get to number 1, here are some honorable mentions. Ken Masters from Street Fighter. I'd really like to see how Mel turned out. Bowser from the Mario franchise. Just because you're a bad guy doesn't make you a bad dad. Chrom from Fire Emblem Awakening. After all, look at how Lucina turned out. Ethan Mars from Heavy Rain. Press X to Jason! Eli Vance from Half-Life. A great father and a great leader. And Gabriel Cunningham from Trauma Team. Funny, his own son didn't know his dad was diagnosing him. I have honestly been debating on whether to play Asura's Wrath for some time now, and after witnessing the character of Asura, I don't think I have an excuse anymore. For a character whose trademark is his seemingly boundless anger and the godly power that comes with it, Asura is surprisingly an honorable demigod. Above all else, Asura cherished his family, especially his wife Durga and his daughter Mithra. In fact, the entire reason for his wrath came about when he was framed for the Emperor's murder, his wife killed, and his daughter used for her power. In his determination to avenge his downfall and save his daughter, he overcame not only the deities he once called his comrades, but his own death, on 2 separate occasions. Seeing innocent people suffer at the hands of the 7 deities only fueled his rage further. Nothing stood between him and saving his daughter. But the moment that sealed the deal for him is the final act. When the Golden Spider took Mithra as its vessel and revealed its true form as the true god Chakravartin, Asura unleashed his full power and overcame the creator's final form with his sheer force of will. Eventually, his daughter was freed and begged Asura to stop. After all, if Chakravartin were to die, the mantras that allowed Asura to live would cease to exist.
But you will still live.
And with that, Asura sacrificed his own existence to defeat Chakravartin just so his daughter wouldn't have to suffer. I'm sorry, I can't see how you can top that kind of devotion. I don't even care that I got spoiled on this game's finale. This is just too good. When you're willing to punch out an enemy who is basically God simply for making your daughter suffer, even sacrificing your own life in the process, you deserve to be gaming's #1 dad. I'm the Quarter Guy, and if you're a child who loves your father, be sure and let them know, not just today, but any day. And if you're a father yourself, be sure to be a good father to your children. After all, great parents raise great children. Oh, and Dad, if you're watching this, thanks for everything. Oh, you gotta be kidding me. The milestone fell through again? Well, this topic's been on the back burner for a couple years now. May as well bring it to a boil. I don't think I can handle this by myself. I'm gonna need some help for this one. Next time, Top 12 Friendship Killing Games. It's game time! Thank you for watching my Father's Day tribute. As always, feedback is appreciated, and I've got plenty of other content on my other playlists. Then there's my social media, my Twitch channel for live streams, and my Patreon if you have the money and want to support my channel further. Oh, and that next list? Yes, it's a collab. Thanks again for watching, and until next time, this is the Quarter Guy, signing out!